Hey friends, and welcome back to Stronger Every Day. So today we are going to talk about being a Christian with mental health issues. So whether that be depression, anxiety, whatever it looks like for you. For me, it's depression and anxiety. So we're going to talk about being a Christian and having depression and anxiety and kind of what all that involves. Again, you're going to see the kids walking to and from. They're just kind of doing their own thing. They just ate and they're just kind of pacing around, but I wanted to go ahead and get this started. So if you see them in the background, that's just the four-legged kids. And I also have the washer and dryer going because I'm trying to multitask. So you may hear a couple of things in the background. So let's get started. There's two quotes that have really meant so much to me. I just feel them so strongly every time I hear them. So let me tell you those. One of them is from Micah Tyler on the song Different. It's right at the beginning of the song. He's talking about some circumstances in his life, and this is what he says. Sometimes the best question is not, Jesus, can you change these things around me? But instead, God, can you change me so I can handle the things that you're walking me through? That just, I feel that in my soul every time I hear that. The second is a song called Graves into Gardens. I believe it's Brandon Lake and Phil Wickham. That's who I listen to, who sings it. So I'm assuming it's those guys that wrote it or perform it. It is the very first of the song. And it says, I've searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. So true. Like, I feel like we reach out so hard to meet some sort of standard, and you just kind of always fail, basically, because it's man's standard, and it's unrealistic to try to keep up to. So I think popular opinion is Christians who have depression, anxiety, mental illness, it is, if there's something wrong with you, then there's something wrong with you. So we would never go to someone who has cancer or heart disease or diabetes or a whole migraines, just a whole plethora of other issues and diseases, arthritis. We would never go to them and say, well, you know, if you would just pray, you wouldn't have that issue. If you would just ask God to take it from you, He would take it from you and you would no longer have that issue. But man, we really hit hard with Christians and mental illness when we have, sorry, there's like a whole stream of farm vehicles going down the road. When we have issues with depression and anxiety, it's because obviously something's wrong with you and you're not living a Christian life, and that could not be further from the truth. To be bluntly honest, God is the only reason that I'm still here today, because I love Him and I want to spend eternity with Him, and I want to be close to Him. I don't ever want to be far from Him. Even when I'm in the throes of depression, sometimes I think, God, where are you? Where in actuality, He's carrying me at that point through what I'm going through, because without Him, I would not still be here today. There's a couple things with that whole, you know, you can't be a Christian, and hold on just a second. I've got Mr. Gordy. He's our blonde deaf chihuahua, and he was wanting to get picked up to be put on the couch. So I'm going to touch on this in a different video, but I wanted to share with you a list of people from the Bible who were Christian, who also had struggles with depression and anxiety. Like I said, I'm going to go over it in more detail in a different video because it's just a lot to cover. But just some of the people from the Bible who struggled with depression and anxiety. Paul, David actually said, my guilt has overwhelmed me like a burden too heavy to bear. Elijah says in 1 Kings 19:4, I've had enough, Lord. He said, take my life. I'm not better than my ancestors. Jonah, now, O Lord, take my life, for it's better for me to die than to live. And these are just a couple quick scriptures. There's several more. Moses grieved over the sin of his people. Jeremiah struggle with loneliness, defeat, and insecurity. Even Jesus, I want you to think about this. In Luke 22:44, Jesus was in such great anguish that he sweat drops of blood. Not to mention, in Mark 14:34 through 36, he had some other things that he talked about as far as having, not saying that he was depressed, but he was not, it wasn't Ramos and sunshine for him. He was having some struggles. He asked God if it was his will for him not to have to go to the cross. He asked 3 times. And if you can think about how much you sin in your life, the burden of every single person before, during, and after your lifetime, that Jesus took their sins upon him. I couldn't even fathom the anguish that he suffered for all of us. So I just wanted to kind of talk briefly on those few people. Like I said, we'll have a separate video where I talk more in detail about different verses and different periods where they were going through. We're also going to do a study on Job. That'll be its own separate video. Job is also one who definitely had some depression and anxiety going on through everything he suffered through. So the other thing is, I wanted to make sure and talk with you about, God does not regard depression as sin, but rather responds to those who suffer in darkness with great compassion and tenderness and understanding. He cares for people who are depressed. And there's a plethora, you can Google it, of Bible verses where he talks about loving those people and being with them and ways to draw close to him. One of my, I'll say, relatives was joining a church, and we wanted to go to show support, and they had a guest preacher come in, and basically his speech was what I just told you, that these people with mental illness, obviously they're not, if they would just talk to God and just speak to him and study his word, they would no longer be depressed and no longer have anxiety, but they would rather throw away $200 to $400 on a therapist who can't actually help them when they could just turn to the Lord. And it took every ounce of me not to get up and walk out during the middle of it, but I did not want for there to be an issue with our relative who was joining the church. And what I noticed for the first time in a long time, my husband and I have been married 10 years. We've been together 12, a little over 10 years, 10 and a half. And he has seen me at my very worst, and he knows how hard that I have fought to get healthy and how many times it has failed. And he's seen all of the depths of it, and he was angered by that, because for you to be a man of God getting up there and telling people that they would not have depression and mental illness and anxiety if they would just pray about it. You would never say that to someone with cancer. Well, if you would just pray about it, you wouldn't have cancer. God would heal you. He can heal you. You can pray, and God can say, I'm going to heal you today. Let me be first to say that for 27 years, I have got down on my knees and begged God to take this away from me, because I can't do it without God being in control. And he has chosen not to. That's why I started this channel, because 5-6 months ago, this turnaround of this channel didn't just come because I thought, hey, let's get on YouTube and kind of change the direction of my channel, and let's talk about really personal things and be really intimate with people about my mental health and what I go through, what I've gone through, what I'm going through. Number one. Number two, I especially do not like talking in front of a group of people. It's nerve-wracking. When he first told me, I want you to help people who are in your same situation, part of me wanted to run out and just scream to everybody and let them know. But to be very honest, if you knew me 6 months ago and previous, so my whole life leading up to that, if I ran up to you and said, hey, guess what? God has decided that he wants me to start a channel and help people that are depressed and have anxiety, and I just feel I'm called to do it, which I do. I believe every bit of that. I believe with everything in me that God has called me to be a voice to help people who are going through what I have suffered through, and let them know you're not alone. It's not unusual, and there's nothing wrong with you, and it doesn't mean that you're not a Christian. But I felt him say, no, I want you to wait. Because if you knew me 6 months ago and before, you might think, girl, you got a lot of praying for you to be able to help anybody. You know, I've seen the way you react to things, and it has not always been Christ-like. And they would have been correct. What he said was, instead of running out and telling everybody about this, how about you just follow me? And it's been fun to see the different circumstances that have happened and the way that I reacted to them versus the way I would have. And that's really your best witness, is letting people who have known you for a while to say, something's different about her. Something's definitely changed, without you screaming. One of my favorite things that Joyce Meyer talks about is she's like, you don't see a peach tree running around saying, I'm a peach tree, I'm a peach tree, I'm a peach tree, I'm a peach tree. You know it's a peach tree by its fruit. And I did not tell anyone aside from my husband what God spoke to me about doing this. A couple of weeks after that, I was sitting with a friend of mine on her front porch, and we were talking about just life, and she said, you know, I feel like God wants you to speak about all this that's happened. I feel like he's got you, he's prepared you and preparing you, and he wants you to help people that are in your situation. And I had not spoke a word to her about that, so he used her as kind of a confirmation for me, because I never want to step out without it being God's will. But understand this, God knows your heart. And if you step to the left and he wanted you to stay straight, he's going to gently correct you. So sometimes we don't ever want to step out without him. But sometimes you can't just stay frozen and not move. You just have to kind of step out. And then right about a week before I started kind of planning and not planning, but the transition of the channel, I told my dad and my in-laws, who I call mom and dad, I told them. And that's really the only people that I told. I told the friend that I had talked to on the porch that day. And I just started doing it. Now, I fully believe that God is preparing me for this. And I'm a constant learn in progress. I'm not where I want to be, but I'm headed to where I want to be. And I think Christians, everyone gets called a hypocrite from time to time for anything, Christian and non-Christian alike. I honestly think we need to give people a little bit more grace. I don't think you're a hypocrite. I think you're human. Am I going to handle every situation 100% perfect and just like Jesus would have? No. And I can tell you, just the other day, a comment was made about someone I love very much, and I could feel on the inside of me the anger and the, well, I'm going to defend him, and I'm gonna handle this situation, let me at him kind of thing. And I could feel God almost holding my shirt going, sis, I have this. I don't need your help. I have it. I heard what was said. I knew it was going to be said before you even heard it. I've got this. Let me handle it. And so I'm a work in progress. I'm not coming to you saying that I'm perfect, that I never struggle with bad thoughts or depression and anxiety. There's been a day this week that I just needed to take a day and just be at home, relax, watch some funny television, read some funny books, watch some YouTube videos, and just kind of decompress. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I think society makes Christians feel like, or even people that aren't Christian, makes you feel like you're being punished by God. And that's why you have depression and anxiety. And it's the fact that you're not a good Christian. right? Because if something's wrong with you, then there's something wrong with you. It's irritating and it's frustrating. You did not do anything to deserve a lifetime of depression and anxiety and mental illness. You did not do anything to deserve that. I'm going to do a separate video. It hit me earlier when I was kind of studying about what I was going to talk about today, about how many times I've thought, God, where are you when I'm in the middle of it? I know a lot of people think, you know, if a loved one dies or if a tragedy happens, where was God? And I know as a Christian who suffered with mental health issues that I have thought that from time to time, God, where are you? Once I'm out of that cycle of depression, I know that he carried me through, but you don't always see that when you're in the depths of it. And what I mean by cycles is for the past 27 years, I've not been depressed every day. It usually, for me, comes in cycles. So it may be 2 days out of the month. It may be a month out of the year. It may be every 3 or 4 months. It may be every couple days. It's just different, but there's cycles. So there's in the depths of it, and then there's better times. And I would never say that my better times I felt like everyone else around me, but it was better than what was happening before. So I just wanted to hop on and tell you that if you are a Christian who struggles with depression and mental health issues, anxiety, there's nothing wrong. God loves you. The only reason that you are actively making it through that season is because God is carrying you at that time. Don't let people tell you that because you're depressed, it must be because you're sinning or you're a sinner. That is not God. That is not God speaking that. God is love, period. Does that sound loving for someone to say that to you? No. Therefore, it is not God. He loves you. He sees what you're going through, and he is walking with you through it. So I just wanted to touch base on that and let you know that you can be a Christian and struggle with depression and anxiety and mental illness. And it is not a punishment from God that you're the one having to go through it. I know now, as of 5-6 months ago, why I went through it. And I can recall looking back times where God was kind of tugging me to step into this earlier. But unfortunately, I'm pretty thick-headed and stubborn, and it took 27 years for me to finally get it and actually open my ears and listen to him. And I don't know that I would change it. And I know that sounds odd looking back, but I don't know that I would change it, because I needed to go through everything that I've went through to feel like I can have the strength enough to come on in front of everyone and tell my story very open and raw and vulnerable. And you know that, of course, the devil, every time you're kind of going against the devil's agenda, he's going to start throwing stuff at you. And it's no different since I started this channel, even leading up to me starting the channel, of who do you think you are? You know, you can't quote 737 scriptures, and you know, you don't know every word of the Bible front to back, and you're not a perfect person. No one is. So I've had to fight him off on that and realize that if God's called me to do this, then he's going to lead me through it. And I might not say and speak everything perfect, but I hope that something that I say reaches you and helps you understand. I always like to end the videos this way because I feel like it's important for you to know I love you, God loves you, your family loves you, your friends love you, and this world needs you here. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Thanks, and we'll see you later.